really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Hey, motherfucker, what you like to do?
Oh, I don't know. Play chess. Screw.
Well, let's play chess.
They give off to Jonathan Taylor. Jump cutting his way close to the goal line. He's in there. Touchdown. I-N-D-Y. Jonathan Taylor.
Wheeler finds Quan from the logo.
Here's Halliburton into the front court. Mishandled it, but gets a shot. Hits it. Hits it.
John, I have never been better to be on the air with you here in Indianapolis, a place where so many of my dreams have come true.
The Ride with JMV on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Hey, I love the fact we're solving the world's issues, trying to figure out what the hell Brazier meant with Jake and I. And that's what you're going to get every single day right here. You may get a lot of sports, which you will, but you're going to get stuff you thought, you know what, I've never really cared about that, and I probably still don't care about it, but what the hell, that is a bit interesting. We all have to find out. James over there, I'm John. Got a busy show for you. I shall explain in just a second. And here's what I mean about this football team, about the Colts. This whole competition thing. This is to appease you. The quarterback competition, we're going to bring in competition. You know how off-putting it is that you feel it necessary to bring in competition for the 4th overall selection, who is now given a 3rd year? You know how off-putting that would be in reality? Yet, it is a word that you want to hear. It is a word that Chris Ballard referenced upon the end of the season in his press conference. Not last week at the Combine, but his press conference. I have not created enough competition for this team. Alas, I made a mistake. And that was supposed to be one of those deeply rooted process rules of competition. We want to make sure this team is deep, which would speak to wanting competition. But that is just to appease you. So don't get this twisted. There's zero competition. Because if there is competition for a guy going into a 3rd year that really nobody except, I think, the younger generational folks that think he flies right out of your video game screen and he doesn't, those are the only folks that go, oh, yeah, competition. He just needs to be motivated. He needs to be motivated by, a new quarterback's coach and a quarterback coach guru. And Josh Allen's training with him for a couple of days. Yeehaw. All this stuff is a bunch of crap. It is. All that matters is going to be how he plays. And I hate to make it that simplex because, hell, I could go on for 25 minutes regarding this, but there's really no need to. There is zero way in the world that you're going to start the season next year unless there is an injury without Anthony Richardson being the starter. Can you imagine just how stupid that would look? What a big waste of time. What a tremendous waste of energy. It's not like you haven't already wasted all these years of looking at your watch and waiting, being told and talked about and described, here comes the level of greatness. All you have to do is be patient. You guys have been patient as hell. Either you sink or you swim. That is the truth. That's the reality of it. All this other stuff's a bunch of crap. Sure, you're going to need a competent backup because sure as hell, Anthony Richardson's going to be injured. But that's it. That's the reason why, and that's nothing new. That's nothing new from Gardner Minshew. That was nothing new from Joe Flacco. At some point, as we know in history, he's going to need a helper for a weekend where he's going to be unavailable. So you're going to need a competent backup. But not for competition. Not for competition. How much doesn't he realize? How much doesn't he understand? I mean, how long do you have to continue to teach? I mean, what did you draft somebody out of the damn 8th grade here? Come on. So that's what I would suggest to you. Instead of trying to think, listen, it is still up to them to find somebody that's good and to sell organizationally this place as being a spot to where this veteran quarterback's going to be able to play. I don't know how difficult that would be. I don't know how easy that would be. I'm assuming you're going to say, all right, meet Mr. Cash. Here's Mr. Cash. Would you like to come in and be the backup right here? And we're going to talk about competition and all that. And believe me, this is something that everybody knew. You knew that going in. There's nothing new here. And you know that when Jim Irsay said everybody is coming back, you knew that this third and final year for the quarterback and for the head coach and year stinking number 9 for the general manager, it is going to be it. And that is going to be that. Now, there's no more, well, if he can do this, you're going to have to see results. What I like to talk about, you're going to have to see evidence. And to this point, there's just like legend. It's like urban legend. Oh, man, I guess it's not urban legend because you do see the athletic ability. There's no doubting that. But there is so much more to it. Zero way there's going to be a competition to start this season. Year 3 of Anthony Richardson is going to be Anthony Richardson. So, again, don't get that twisted. I know everybody was really taken back by the Jeremy Fowler yesterday report of the 3 quarterbacks, Trey Lance and Daniel Jones. Who was the third on that list? Hell, I can't even remember. It doesn't matter who it was. 3 guys. You need a competent backup because Anthony Richardson rarely stays healthy. You need that. But you don't need it for competition. If you need that right now for competition, then you absolutely know, sitting in whatever chair you're sitting in presently, that you don't have the right guy. If that's what you have, we got to get some competition in here. You would think just the lack of production so far would be competition enough. I don't care how young and inexperienced you are. You come in on this expecting results, unless you're just the most entitled dude of all time. He's never really, to me, I've never really thought him to be the most entitled dude of all time. Maybe I've been wrong with that judgment, considering he got benched. But I also know the inside. The reason why he got benched last year more than anything else was because they felt that Joe Flacco at those moments would give them a chance to win. Now, then you talk about how he wasn't doing things right. And sure, he probably wasn't doing things 100% right, but it was more about what they felt about Flacco and their opportunity to win at that moment than it was anything else. And you saw as soon as we found out that Flacco couldn't beat anybody with his group, or I shouldn't say anybody, but would get undressed by others during those 2 games with this group, then they went right back to what you would want to call the future. It was a really easy decision to make. And this is an easy decision to make. You can call it competition, and then the fan base can stand down a little bit. Some of the media can stand down a little bit and say, all right, well, they bring it in. They're doing all they can do right now. Mike Chappell has said this, I think forever, he and I, when we talk on Thursday, it all comes down to one dude and one dude only. And as of right now, that dude's really given us no reason to believe anything is going to be different. And as I've said before, the Colts have their fingers crossed and they're hoping. Meanwhile, you go ahead and talk about a competition, and you have a fan base that stands down. You've got media coverage says, well, now here's what they're doing. They're doing the best that they can. It all comes down to one dude. There's 0. Can you imagine the massive ridiculousness if, well, we have decided that quarterback X, whether it's Daniel Jones or whomever, as a backup quarterback wins the job? What you have done now is you kind of set the table for Anthony Richardson. There's going to be he's not going to get any reps in this preseason game. We're going to go ahead and leave him out of this preseason. Why? Because you got a competition going. If the competition is going, you need the reps. So we'll see where this goes. We'll see if this is a good move for the Colts to make. But it is, if you want to call it lip service, call it lip service. Again, there's zero way you make the decision to start anybody but Anthony Richardson coming up at the beginning of season number 3 for the Colts quarterback. Conversationally speaking, we could do it. In fact, Stephen Holder's going to join us, and we'll talk about that coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. I will also say you massively need a tight end. And Tyler Warren, by all accounts, looks to be the best tight end of the draft. For God's sake, is there something where you don't have to trade down and, well, we're going to trade down and value this and value that? If you identify somebody as being the best, and especially being the best at helping you, would you go get his ass? Could you do that? And don't worry about the picks and what you're going to get. And, hey, we're outmaneuvering everybody else. Hey, at the time of outmaneuvering everybody, what you have to do is you have to do what is best for this team, not what is best for your ego in outmaneuvering somebody like you're playing Stratego. If this guy is the best and this guy is in your general vicinity, would you please, for the love of God, go get him? You come out of the combine thinking that guy is exactly what is necessary. You have a position of, again, massive need. And this is something I brought up a number of times. It's not just like NFL people identify this. Like fans have identified this. You guys knew that, much like you knew about the cornerback situation a year ago. And when you guys are dialed in and then it kind of escapes those running the organization, that is so incredibly problematic, I can't even know where to begin. I know, I sit here and it's, for me, easier said than done. But other teams do it. Don't other teams seem to find a way? Why can't this one? You make all these promises, all these proclamations, all these statements. If that is in the most needed category, and I know that obviously quarterback is the most needed, but you know where this is going. But in terms of offense, you got a running back, you got some wide receivers. I understand why you don't go get Deebo Samuel. The dude's injured. You don't want to have to pay him. The fifth rounder's kind of funny because who gives a crap? But I mean, everybody holds on around here, a fifth rounder, like it's a wintertime squirrel in the tree with a bunch of nuts. That's how you embrace it. But let's just face it, with a even half-assed healthy Deebo Samuel, Washington is much more ready to take on that sort of situation than the Colts would be. So I'm not even going to blame them for that, because I do understand it. However, I would blame them if you have a tight end that is going to drop selected in your journal, and if he doesn't fall, why does everybody have to fall in your lap? Let's go get it. Go get it. We discussed that at 239-1070, a big weekend for basketball. What do you want to begin with, IU? I guess we should with the Boilermakers on Friday night with a win that you absolutely had to have, that they got at home against UCLA. That's good. Down the stretch we come in the regular season of the Big Ten. IU on the road at Washington. IU continues to win. IU looks to be, according to Joe Lunardi, in the field. To me, tomorrow night in Eugene, Oregon is going to be a damn big deal. This is like a win and you're in situation, isn't it? And I'm assuming you can still place yourself nicely when you close things out against Ohio State. But doesn't this game feel like, and what did I tell you? IU fans are going, yeah, this feels pretty good. So not only do you have a team right now that you can get behind, you have 3 players from the state of Indiana that it's more than just NIL money and more than just making a sweet video. It's about being from this state and having pride in playing Indiana basketball. There is something to be said about that. We may overuse it. We may wear it out. But there is something to be said about that. Even if you're not the most talented, even if you don't have the highest level of NIL cost, what you do have is a pretty solid, a pretty strong recognition of what this is supposed to mean and how you respond accordingly. Galloway, Leal, and Goody have responded accordingly. I'm just not making this stuff up. It's true. And there is definitely something to it. So Eugene, Oregon coming up tomorrow night. That, believe, is a 9 o'clock start. Getting peacocked tomorrow night, I guess, James, right? Television-wise, getting peacocked. A lot of people, I guess, didn't get to watch it on Saturday. You got peacocked on Saturday, too. The streaming stuff is hilarious. I think right now we're in the category, are we in the phase now of streaming to where it's equally as expensive as if you just kept all your stuff plugged in the first place? Is anybody like ahead of the game, beating the game right now in terms of cutting the cord or pulling the plug or whatever mantra that was a couple of years ago and going streaming? Is anybody ahead? Because it looks like that we're all just about ready to get back to the start to where everything's stinking expensive. I'm just curious. I mean, an 8 o'clock pregame show over on 93 WIBC tomorrow night. And the Pacers, yes, I was very disappointed on Friday night in Miami. Yeah, you get sunk by stinking Davion Mitchell, but he was wide open. I mean, hell, wide open, stepped into a three. I mean, if you're a professional, if you're a guard, wide open, stepping into a non-contested three, no matter the situation, probably should be a make. Yeah, the lack of goaltending. I did think, I haven't made fun of him as much as really I should because I do enjoy it. But the officiating did kind of really suck on Friday in Miami. The lack of a goaltend. But again, you can't give up a difference-making three to Davion Mitchell, holy hell. So that was a bummer. They come back, beat Chicago last night, Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Get a very talented Houston Rockets team in here coming up on Thursday. You guys, what do you think? Rockets pretty good. If you've watched them a couple of different times, they're going to be in on a second of a back-to-back. And that is coming up tomorrow night. OKC for the Rockets coming up later on tonight. But the 4-hole, I am going to be incredibly upset if there's anything else other than the 4 seed in the Eastern Conference for the Pacers. As of right now, what are they tied with the Bucks? Bucks, Pacers. You got the Pistons at the 6. Pistons are 7 games over 500. Bucks and the Pacers 34 and 25. And you're just not going to climb all the way up to get to number 3 where the Knicks are located right now. But still, you just need to effectively put yourself in a much better position, and certainly hanging out at the 4 would be just that. I don't know if it should be viewed as weird. I think Detroit, because of the way that they act, maybe this is just a Pacer thing. I always think that they're going to be susceptible to some FUBAR at some point, but yeah, not really. 9-1 in their last 10 are the Pistons, and compared to that, the Pacers 6-4. The Bucks occupying that 4-hole right now with the Pacers are 7-3. So there's going to be some premium on winning. Hey, we went through that first half and complained about the schedule and the strength of schedule and being on the road and going to Paris. This is where you have to see it pay off. That's it. Stretch run of the regular season. Not only see it pay off, but ramp up. Be playing to the best of your ability at the right time. Tyrese Halliburton is doing just that. Now, you guys certainly recognize that Halliburton compared to the Halliburton we saw pre-All-Star break, right? That's the one that's necessary. That's the orchestrator that gets everybody else going while also having a high level of confidence in his own offensive repertoire. That's what you're getting. I've called for it, and that's what you're getting. All right, 239-1070 is the number. Email address is jmv@1075thefan.com. Inside the AAA Membership Lounge. Via YouTube Live, AAA.com. Sign up to become a member today. It is the face of the stinking moon. You guys ever play the video game Moon Patrol? That's some really cool 80s music. Great cabinet stand-up, Aladdin's Castle, Spaceport in Bloomington. It's a great classic 80s video game. When I'm driving around Indianapolis, I feel like I'm driving Moon Patrol. Look, check out the video of Moon Patrol. That's exactly how I look like I'm driving in Indy. It's like Moon Patrol. See if you can come up with the background sound, and we'll do some me driving around, James, Indianapolis, right now. And this is the very reason why you need to become a AAA member at AAA.com stat. It has got some sweet sounding 80s video game background music for you right there. Got anything for me? Does it play?
Is this the right song?
I think so. Can you shoot my gun? I've got a gun to shoot right there, too, that shoots really big bombs.
Well, this is just a song.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
This is how I drive around Indy all the time thinking about Moon Patrol. So you got guns. You got guns that shoot down UFOs at the top, and then you shoot straight in front of you. Really what it is, it's kind of like we're going to make Defender into this really weird-sounding game. It kind of looks like Defender. You're always going right.
Mm-hmm.
Moon Patrol. Never before?
Never even heard of it.
Well, it's classic. A AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live. The stream, the app, HD Radio, Mary J. Blige, the queen of R&B and soul. Once upon a time, James, back in 1992, maybe early 93. I believe I went, maybe her Real Love album. I bought it in the overstock room at Terre Haute's Columbia House. Remember Columbia? Records and tapes where you would send in hey, you can get 20 tapes for a dime. And that's where everybody says, oh, man, this really does cost a lot more than a dime. And they sent all their stuff back because they couldn't pay for it. And then, I don't know, I think you had to know somebody to get in. I don't know how it worked, but I ended up over there. Mary J. Blige, 1990, I think it was early 1993, James. Tickets to give away today from Mary J. Blige. That's going to be a good time at Cambridge Fieldhouse. That is good stuff. Family Affair is pretty awesome. We'll go with Family Affair Rejoiner when you hear that number 9 later on in the show. Will be a winner. Mary J. Blige, Cambridge Fieldhouse. Quick break. We'll come back. Tony East, top of the 4 o'clock hour. Stephen Holder, 5 o'clock hour. Mary J. Blige tickets also forthcoming. And your calls at 239-1070. You guys ready to rack them up? 239-1070. Again, that email, jmv@1075thefan.com. I want to hear what you have to say about the weekend in general moving forward. It's 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Lost on me. I understand why you would want to do it, but I don't care how old you are or how young you are in this case, how inexperienced you are. Come on, man. I mean, by now, should you not realize that? You have to get a good backup in because you know at some point it is going to be necessary. But as competition, I mean, hell. Can you imagine the flip out that should happen if, well, we've gone through training camp and the preseason and the competition dictates that we start Daniel Jones. Can you imagine? And I do know this. I know that all you want to do is see this team win. And I'm with you on that. But this whole competition thing, this is what you guys wanted to hear. This is what you wanted to hear. This is what people wanted to hear. We want to hear about the competition, the positional competition that evidently, according to Chris Ballard, was not evident a year ago, blah, blah. I mean, clearly it was with the Colts because when you bench Richardson midseason, it was more about thinking, yeah, I think Flacco can get us a couple of wins in these tough games right here. And as it turned out, that was not the case. But that's your competition in a nutshell right there. JMV, are they going to make AR do skills, obstacle course every practice? I mean, come on, man. Steve, I'm right there with you. Honestly, though, if it is a competition, I guess it would be everything, right? Who's going to get there first? JMV, Fields will be the only true competition, and I'm not even sold on that. We knew this. When you saw the so-called Jeremy Fowler release list from the NFL Combine that came down yesterday, you knew you were going to be underwhelmed, right? I don't know if you knew you were going to get that underwhelmed. So Daniel Jones, Trey Lance, and Jacoby Brissett. There should be absolutely zero competition there. And there's not going to be. Because a healthy Richardson will start really no matter. You imagine how bad you have to look in training camp? And you're going to what? Play on and off every preseason game? Just come on. Shout out to Chris Litzy. I don't know if I would go. I do like pineapple, don't get me wrong. I probably wouldn't add the pineapple tidbits here, but the Daisy brand cottage cheese, by the way, now you see Daisy brand cottage cheese all over TV, in advertisements everywhere. You're watching a game and there's Daisy brand cottage cheese. I'd like to think I started all that. And we did the dips before the end of the football season. I'd like to think that I was pretty heavy in on the whole cottage cheese thing. Thank you very much. It does. Makes a guy feel a little bit good. True story right there. Yeah, regarding IU basketball, the one thing that you noticed in their resurgence recently is 3 guys from the state of Indiana that get it. And they get it beyond NIL. They get it beyond the compensation of being somebody that is just brought in. Listen, and this is nothing against Ballo. Nothing at all, because this is just where we are. But there is one reason and one reason only he's in Bloomington playing basketball. And it's not for the business courses. Now, maybe for the social experiences, as we've seen before, but that may be an alternative reason, but there's one reason. This is where you can get the most money. But you can see in 3 dudes, in Leal, in Galloway, and in Goody, that there is state of Indiana pride. I know a lot of you go, state of Indiana, it's real. It is a real thing. If you've ever been a part of it before, you'd know exactly what I meant. It is a real thing. These are not overwhelmingly talented dudes, but they do have a passion. And part of that angle of passion is the understanding of what that program and basketball in this state represents. It is a true thing. I know a lot of you, it's lost on you. Maybe you didn't start out being from around here. Maybe you're just too young to recognize it. But it is true. And with those three guys, you can absolutely see it. I don't know what things hold. I would have to think tomorrow night, like people are saying, is this going to be a play-in game tomorrow night? I don't think it's a play-in game. I think you absolutely solidify yourself. If you're IU and you win in Eugene tomorrow night, I think you're solidly in. And I'll get you this. The fan base thinks of this as absolutely perfect. What do you mean by perfect? It's perfect because you get the gratification of your team finally getting back to the tournament, winning some games, something that at the water cooler or with your jack-around friends at the bar or whatever you're doing, you can like talk to them and say, yeah, IU basketball, I told you. And you can be excited about it. You can have a conversation without, saying, well, they didn't make the tournament and we stink. You're going to be able to get that. And then you're going to get what you've wanted for a while, and that is a new head coach. I mean, could it be more perfect? Absolutely. Normally, things can be more perfect. You just have to think about it a little bit longer. But this is as good of a situation as any IU basketball fan, especially those that I'm talking about right now, could have asked for. The table's set for IU fans to come together in a level of happiness that we have not witnessed around here in a long time, because normally there's always something tugging at you to get you schleprockish, to get you upset, to get you uptight, get you irritable. But these are two qualities that are taking shape right now with this basketball program. And for the first time in a while, you come together and feel good about it. Yeah, tomorrow night is a big damn deal in Eugene, Oregon. Solidified everybody with a win. Boilermakers got a win at home over UCLA on Friday night, too, kind of getting back to the type of Boilermaker ball. And Trey Kaufman-Renn, he called what Chris Kramer talked to us last week was necessary, a players-only meeting, and then followed that up with a fantastic game. That's exactly how you're supposed to do it. You lead on the floor and off the floor by example. And again, I know that gets lost on everybody too, because all this at some point has become a level of lip service, but that was something that was real that you could see that happened. And we can detail it. Got that coming up as well. Pacer conversation, Tony East, top of the hour. I did want to give a shout out to all, not just the participants of the state finals for the girls over the weekend, and a job well done, but those who won. Shout out to LN. There's just really good basketball being played. We get a lot of input from Decatur County and Greensburg. I know they fell one game short to Norwell. Still a fantastic season. I know it was disappointing at the end, but fantastic season. How about Borden out of Southern Indiana? And South K. Knox out of Southern Indiana. South Knox was legit. I'll tell you what. Was it all South Knox in there? Of the two games of the morning session? Because that place, the lower bowl of Gamebridge Fieldhouse, looked absolutely packed. And I'm going to give it up to South K. Knox. I'm assuming that most of Knox County, including Bicknell and North Knox, locked and loaded in Gamebridge Fieldhouse on Saturday morning, midday. That was impressive, though. I don't think there was anybody left in Knox County. And maybe in Vincennes. But no, really nice weekend. Again, the event, I listened to it because I like the old school nature of it on radio. It's just me. I mean, hell, I'm in radio, so it would make sense, right? But at the same time, I do miss the fact that I can just go on, a Channel 4 or a, whatever television experience. It used to be Pacers TV rep back in the day, whether it was Fox or whatever. You know what I mean? And just turn it on and have it on And I know it's really easy. You can pay for it by the game and you can stream it, but I'm sorry, kicking and screaming with my ass here. Sorry, kicking and screaming. Full disclosure, and this is going to make, what are you guys going to call me? I'm not really a boomer. I'm a Generation Xer, which you don't mess with that because we're badasses. And I don't care how old we are. Generation X is badass. We went from slacker to dictating terms on everything here. Keep that in mind. That's Generation X. But I can't get down with it, man. I just want to be able to turn it on. This is why I have yet to cut the cord. I just want to go, hey, what channel is that again? Yeah, it is 671-1529005. And be sure you don't add a 6 instead of a 5 because that's going to take you to the Hustler channel. Okay. I'm good. I just want to be able to go, click, there it is. But I am still entirely invested, and you know me, invested in radio and trying to help save that by the moment, too. James, I need a break here. Mary J. Blige, a little bit later on when you hear the re-entry song, Family Affair, and not one moment stinking before, everybody. Tony East saw Jarace Walker fool around and get a triple-double a little bit earlier today for the Mad Ants. We'll talk to Tony, I'm sure, about that. The playing time, if you will, for Jarace Walker. And this Pacer team getting Houston on the second of a back-to-back coming up tomorrow night. And the ramping off a stretch run that is highly necessary. They have positioned themselves as best they can at this point. Let's see this group take advantage of it. All right, your calls, too, at 239-1070. That's on the other side. The stream, the app, HD Radio, inside the AAA membership lounge via YouTube Live. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
16 says I just whipped your ass.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Yeah, I saw Jimmy Johnson retired from Fox Sports. 31 years. A nice run as a coach and a broadcasting post-coach career right there. The Eagles cut loose this NFL tidbit. 6-time Pro Bowler. I don't know if you guys had seen this a little bit earlier, but Darius Slay. Pretty good player. We're going to start to see what next week legalized tampering happens on a Monday. So we'll be yip-yapping about that. And this should be right because we have been promised. Are you going to hold your breath on this promise? We have been promised a much different approach. Are we going to see freewheeling? And hey, is it going to be like Rodney Dangerfield and Caddyshack walking into the golf pro shop? Give me 6 of those, 3 of those. Oh, this hat. Is that going to be like Chris Ballard and the Colts rolling into the tampering period that's legalized with NFL free agency? Got some cash to spend, and we're going to spend it. Like Dangerfield. Probably not. But I guess we shall see. JMV, you're absolutely right about IU basketball. Longtime basketball fan here, and it's like having your cake and eating it too, which I never really understood because if you're going to get cake, you're probably going to eat it. It's not just going to sit there, right? But yeah, having your cake and eating it too. You got a team that's positioning itself and playing much better basketball this time of year while you're also being able to go out and get Brad Brownell. As I mentioned last week, I don't know why you guys just don't dig on Brad Brownell. Why is that? What are we looking for here? Why would he not float your boat? And this is not like, I will tell you this. There are a lot of dudes that are going to get love for this open gig in Bloomington from those friends, and people have mentioned Brownell to me. I just am kind of curious, why do you downplay his level of success at Clemson? Believe me, you didn't know that they had basketball at Clemson since Dale Davis played there. You have zero idea. None. You know how hard it is to win at basketball? It's right next to hockey in Clemson, South Carolina. You know how hard it is to win? So your argument is the AC is down, the ACC is down this year. I'm just curious. I'm not suggesting that he's going to be the guy or I think he should be the guy. I just don't know why. It just always seems like that IU fans, and this is not just IU fans, I should probably put it another way. I think it's just fans in general. Just have these high level of expectations, and most of which I think you come to find out, you learn were not going to happen in the first place. I think that's part of it. Tony East with Pacer Hoopage. They position themselves to take advantage of their end-of-the-year schedule. Now it's time to do it. And their major ingredient, the orchestrator, is doing just that. You have seen a much different Tyrese Halliburton since the All-Star break. That's exactly what I asked for. Remember, I said, go get yourself a big nap. I asked for it, and that's what we're receiving right now. Now, Tony E. is going to join us coming up on the other side. Stephen Holder about this whole Colts quarterback competition thing and more. That's coming up at the 5 o'clock hour. Mary J. Blige tickets, Family Affair re-entry. Number 9 after that's going to win tickets to see that show at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Don't go anywhere. It's 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Ride with JMV.
Look up idiot in the dictionary. You know what you'll find?
Picture me.
No. The definition of the word idiot, which you f***ing are.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
James over there. I'm John. Thank you for joining us. We got Stephen Holder coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. Got to get into some NCAA tournament basketball conversation. The Sycamores get Southern Indiana. I believe ISU is a 9 seed this year. So, hey, all you got to do is win 4 and you're in. Matthew Graves, I believe James is going to join me coming up tomorrow. That is tomorrow. So, Arch Madness. Man, I had a good-ass time last year, though. I almost cussed worse than that right there. I didn't mean to either. That's weird. I'm going to have to chill. But we'll talk to Matthew Graves coming up tomorrow. Indiana State. This is a hell of a time of year. And honestly, I give it up to IU fans that look like that their team has positioned itself to get in here. Heath says, Brownell is mediocrity 101. Also, idea for an X poll for IU fans. More excited about IU postseason hopes or a coaching change? Hey, here's even more, Heath, I'll add to that. How about coaching change, but are you excited about the coaching prospects that are still available? Seems like a lot of people have jumped off with the no more Stevens, the no more Dusty stuff, or the Bruce Pearl conversation getting flushed down the toilet, or the Chris Beard stuff. Now, I like that. More excited about IU in the postseason and that possibility, or the coaching change. I'm telling you, it's both. This is as excited as I've seen, and I think that's one big reason it's been so fleeting here. With success, that's what you get excited about. Heath, I tell you what, I'll utilize that coming up in just a bit. All right. Fulton gave me a quick update before I get to Tony East. You ready for the Fulton stat line? The reason why I bring this up, James, is because Jarace Walker had a triple-double, really good stat line for the Mad Ants today that Tony's going to tell us about. You ready? All right, over the weekend, Fulton had another game. Me and my Hamilton County Chargers basketball team, we lost. It was the Chargers 18 against Marion County 40.
Oh.
But I got injured on my elbow at my basketball game. I'm at the hospital. Now, mind you, with his elbow injury.
Wow.
Fulton made 40 basketball shots, had 40 rebounds, also contributed 40 basketball passes.
All with a hurt elbow?
And shot 40 jump shots.
Wow.
So he was like, he's the
one-armed bandit out there.
3, 4. What's 5? Not double, triple, quadruple.
Quintuple?
Is that what it is?
I have no idea.
Is that like a quin something 40? 40 jump shots. That's a hell of a stat right there.
Quintuple.
Quintuple? So we had a 40 quintuple over the weekend. I don't think anybody's ever done that.
I don't think, especially
That's
not with
the first
one
time
arm.
right there, buddy. Yeah, one arm working right there. Hope you feel better. That's our guy Fulton and his stat line over the weekend on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. He covers the Pacers. He asked Tyrese Halliburton wrestling questions in the postgame presser and all that. So Tony East joins us now. And recently married? Did I see that accurately?
You're correct, yes.
What?
Yep.
When did this happen?
The 15th, 2 Saturdays ago.
Did you have an open bar at the reception?
Yes, of course we did.
You stud. How much was the tab?
I'm not going to make guests come to the ceremony and not feed them.
So how much was the tab? How much did the bar cost?
Some number per person that I'm not comfortable admitting on the radio.
Oh, please. Come on, man. We're all friends here.
Everybody had a great time, I hope.
Was it Was it more than $5,000?
I think so. Yeah. Yes.
Was it more than $10,000?
We had a big wedding. There were a lot of people there. Also, as a part of this.
How many people were at this wedding? What is this? It's a big damn deal.
I think the final number was 185.
185. So you may have spent $20,000. Did you have top shelf?
We did have no. We mostly stuck to wells. We had a few extra things sprinkled in.
Man, well done.
I'm not that nice.
Is your new wife or her parents loaded?
More questions that I'm not going to answer on the radio.
He's not there anymore. Automotive Grip Hotline. Hey, Jarace Walker, I mentioned this on the intro in here, had a triple-double today playing for the Mad Ants, and I would say that he feels good. Like, a lot of guys would be all upset about having to do that in the fashion in which he is. Didn't appear with that particular stat line he felt that way at all.
Yeah, I don't think so. And that's actually one of the things I asked him after the game is, this was his first G League assignment of the year. How different does it feel this year when you've played, he played the first 45, I think, games for the Pacers versus last year he wasn't playing much at all. And how does that make you approach this assignment differently, right? Whereas last year it was a majority of his minutes and his way to develop. And this year it's like getting the rust off, right? And the biggest difference to me was his handle looked way cleaner this year, and he dominated, right? He was the best player on the floor, no doubt about it. Good passing early, forceful dunks. The rebounding really stood out too. Like, you've been around talking to Chad and Rick on your show. Like, that's what they've challenged him to get better at, right? So seeing him kind of put together a really complete game with like half the Pacers roster and their whole coaching staff and front office in attendance was kind of exactly what I think he needed to do. And I think the way he responded to the assignment was different than last year, which is important because he's right there on the fringe, right?
Yeah.
He played well against the Bulls, but he did not play well against the Heat. And, I think for him it's been tough trying to figure out, like, when he goes out there, is he trying to impress and show different stuff? Is he trying to just be himself? But then it's, like, harder for him to earn other playing time. So he's fighting that internal battle, but he played very well today in his first, major minutes at all since Aaron Nesmith got healthy.
He is newlywed Tony East. He's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group Hotline. I want to get back to the rebounding thing because he'd been challenged to rebound better. And so many people take that as, all right, if you give greater effort, then you're going to be a better rebounder. And that's not, especially at that level, to me, how it is. You agree?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, like, if you're a center, like if you're 6'10" or taller, it can be an effort thing, but for basically everybody else.
Now easy. We don't want to get into a certain discussion here that's going to get me in fights.
I'm not doing that. Look,
right.
I'm not doing. I mean, certainly everybody saw the games without Miles Turner this month. I hope I don't have to talk about that today. Regardless, when you're hit Jarace's height or shorter, basically, there is a technique element to it. There's a ball read element to it that, like, Terry Taylor was really good at, if you remember him. All that kind of stuff that goes into it. And I think for Jarace, what it's about, not really effort or anything, is physicality, right? That's something else they bring up with him all the time. And, that's like your box out is stronger, or like the way you hit your defender coming across the lane, that to the extent you're allowed to, it is tougher and makes them recoil a bit when you're about to go up for a board, or just like all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, it's about rebounding and actually grabbing the ball. The Pacers still stink at that, right? But it's also about like what the collective physicality does over the course of a game, especially for someone of his size. Like at his draft press conference, Chad Buchanan likened him to a linebacker, and like that is what his build kind of looks like. If he can turn that into actually playing like someone with his build, seems like they should, I think it would make him better. And that manifests with rebounding, but it also comes in the form of defense. And like today, he just went through a few guys on drives. Those poor Raptors 905 players didn't want to deal with it. And like, he just got easy points out of it. So yeah, it comes in the form of getting 12 rebounds today, but it also matters in a lot of other ways what they're asking him to do. And you saw the extent of that today.
It's Tony East is with us. What does he have to do besides, how it was described to him, how he played today? What's he have to do to maintain in the lineup outside of obvious injury situations?
Yeah, I was going to say, can he get promoted to GM and then trade away a couple players in front of him? That's probably his best chance. I mean, it's tough, right? Because it's very rare that a player gets picked by a team in the lottery, and then that team is immediately in the conference finals, right? So, like, the goals of the team he's on are very different than a lot of teams that pick as high as the Pacers did when they got him. And they picked another good player in the first round the same year as him in Ben Shepherd, who very much fits their style of play and is playing quite well this year. And the way the Pacers want to play up-tempo requires having depth to do that for 48 minutes, or you just, like, lose your speed and style at some point in a game. So they have to build the roster the way they do. They have to try to win because they're good and they made the conference finals last year. And they have to try to blend those things every night with their rotation. And that doesn't really lend itself to, like, just handing a young guy minutes. Now, here's the thing. Jarace has played well. Like, from mid-December onward, he was good. So it was actually very hard, I think, for them to take minutes away from him. But they had to put Aaron Nesmith on the floor, right? So the answer is unfortunately pretty much only injuries, unless he just has some dominant performances. He played well against the Bulls last night. He had some great passes, probably the best individual one pass of the entire game on a lob to Obi Toppin, right? Like, he's playing well when he plays, but it's just no one gives me a good answer on why someone else should lose minutes so he could play, because everybody in front of him at like 2, 3, and 4 fills a very obvious, important role for the Pacers, and that's not Jarace Walker's fault. That's the Pacers' fault, and they have to figure out how to blend that all together, whether that's this season or next season or whatever it is. It's tough for him. He'd have to have I think the answer is he'd have to have an exceptional stretch of guarding awesome players, and the players that he'd have to shut down, no one can really stop them, right? It's just a really tough spot for him to be in once again.
Tony East is with us. I had mentioned this. They got through the schedule, the Paris trip, all that we had talked about, a really bad start, the injuries, a tired-looking Tyrese Halliburton who looks nothing of the sort right now, to really position themselves to be where they are right now. The level of importance to ramp up, take advantage of this end of the regular season, and to help catapult themselves, hopefully, to a higher level in the postseason. This is the reason, this is what we talked about, positioning themselves. They're going to be able to follow suit in that with our level of expectations here to close.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating, right? And I'm still really curious. I don't know where you sit on this, but, like, I don't know how good they are as a defensive team. In January, they were great, right? The numbers said they got stops. I watched them get stops. I can see they're playing better on that end. And then in February, they were okay. They were bad on D against the Heat. They were really bad in the first half against the Bulls. And so this stretch run is really important for them to kind of put everything together. We've seen them play very well at times this season. Their record since mid-December is exceptional. We've seen them play very terrible this season like they did early when they were banged up. And you talked about, the Halliburton part of it, but they've had a lot of guys with consistency issues this year. This month is the time for them to, get the seed they want. They could still host a series. They could still avoid the Celtics. There's a lot at stake for them, but I'll be fascinated to see in this last month or so what they really show their level to be. Can they clean up against teams they're supposed to beat in March? Like, you should comfortably handle Chicago in March right now. And it took them 2.5 quarters to look good last night, right? So it's going to be fascinating to see how their stretch run goes, just because of all these things that are at play for them. And they are still, like, clearly good. They're going to make the playoffs. They've created a lot of separation between the play-in tournament, but I still think there's some questions they want to answer about themselves and figure out how good they truly can be for the rest of the season, because their first 25 games and their next 25 were so different. So, yeah, obviously I think they're happy where they are, especially given where they started, and they got to be thrilled with the way Tyrese looks of late. This is the best 5-6 game stretch of his season by a pretty good amount, I think. Just looks faster to me, but still a lot for them to show and figure out in a way that it's not concerning that they're figuring stuff out. It's just revealing their true level will kind of figure out how they feel about their team in the summer, especially given how the playoffs could go.
You mentioned defensively here, not knowing really how truly good they are. Now, the stats have certainly been, since the turn of the calendar, a lot better. But yeah. I would agree with you on Friday night. Sometimes the absolute lack of recognition about who has it going and who's left open and who isn't, that's the stuff that really does bug me.
Yeah, totally. And, it's funny, like, some of this stuff you can just see, like, I can tell you that the numbers say, but when they were defending well, they just looked really connected, right? I could see it with my eyes that they weren't doing a lot of that stuff you talked about, and they had good nights where, didn't feel like the other team could really get anything going, and that like turned their season around. And it hasn't felt as bad as it has at times in these last couple of weeks. Like last season, they were just awful on defense for a lot of the year, right? But it has felt like worse. They're not getting the stops they need to. They can't quite identify their own matchups. Their transition defense has just been atrocious. I mean, they had twice in that first half against the Bulls, and I get that the Bulls are really up-tempo and try to get into their offense early, but twice in that first half where the Pacers scored and then gave up a transition basket. Like, that's the sign of a team that is, either whatever you want to say, disconnected or not focused or whatever on defense. And they figured it out. They came out in the second half and trapped Kobe White and defended better and won the game. But I just don't know what to expect from them defensively. Are they truly an above-average defense? They were for all of January and parts of December. Are they awful like they were to start the season? They're probably somewhere in the middle, but how good they really are, really matters. That'll influence how I think a lot of people feel about them in the playoffs. That'll influence how they feel about themselves in the offseason when they're making decisions about, the next version of this team. So I think this month will matter, and sometimes March stats can be fluky because some teams just give up because they should give up. But it's important for the Pacers to figure this stuff out, one, because, they want to know, but two, that you got to defend well in the playoffs, and they were just good enough on defense last year. I think they'd like to be a little better than that.
You think Tony East joins us on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. There's going to be Pacers and Pistons in round number 1 of the East in some form or fashion.
Golly, do I hope so. Wouldn't that be fun? I mean, beyond just the Bucks are so interesting. They just beat Denver at home this week. They looked pretty good. Like, their new additions are all helping them in very weird ways that I didn't quite expect them to. But the Pistons just look awesome right now. They won 8 of 9 or something. And if it's not unreasonable, the Pistons can get the 4 seed, right? So the Pacers still do have to fight to get into that 4-5 and avoid the Boston side of the bracket. Of course, they want to get the 4 seed themselves. But, yeah, I mean, a 4-5 Pacers-Pistons ascending teams with great creator series would be so fun. And somehow it's worked out last year that, 2 of the teams the Pacers got into the most tiffs with during the season ended up being 2 of their playoff opponents. The Pistons certainly lead the league in little scrums with the Pacers this year. So that would be a hoot of a series, and it certainly looks like it's possibly trending that way. The Bucks do have a pretty hard schedule the rest of the way as well, but something to keep an eye on for the Pacers in their own seeding is they play the Bucks 2 more times, and both of them are the second night of back-to-backs for the Pacers, who have not beaten Milwaukee this year. So those games are really important, and they're tough circumstances. So those games are important before they can kind of ID if they're going to be playing Detroit or Milwaukee or not.
Tony, the Pistons have lost 3 times since they lost to the Pacers in that game that had a lot of stuff going on. Back, I think, on January the 29th was the date of that.
Yeah, they look amazing, right? I mean, Cade looks like a top 15 player, and Malik Beasley had missed a 3 in 2 months, and Jalen Duren can defend a little bit now, and there's just like a vibes thing to it, which sounds so stupid to say, but the Pacers had that at times last year, right, during their NBA Cup run and their early season play when Halliburton was looking like a top 10 player, where it's just like even on nights where it feels like things are going a little screwy, all of a sudden your team has this great vibe moment and scores 10 points in 2 minutes and you're winning, and that's how they beat Boston a few weeks ago. That's how they hung with Denver. It's like it's just what they do recently, and a lot of that's because Cade Cunningham's really good. But it's been a hoot to watch them be good because that city deserves a good team, and they've been so bad for so long. So outside of the Pacers part of it, it's been exciting for me to watch Detroit be a fun, interesting basketball product again.
Is Tony East talking? You'll go ahead. Sorry,
Detroit. Sorry, I was going to say they also have a team that fits the city of Detroit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because they act like jackasses. Yeah, well, I mean I think that's why JB Bickerstaff is especially early on in situations normally really good, and you can't tell me he hasn't identified one of these motivational strong points that he has with his team, and then how that conveys to the location in which he coaches. I mean, he saw
Cleveland too.
Yeah, he saw all that back on the 29th of January. He saw all that go down, and I think that you don't want it to escalate to the point to where you lose guys like Isaiah Stewart for an extended period of time. But I'm assuming he's going to trade off, right? That whole I think he got suspended a couple of games after that. I think he'll trade that off for that hard-nosed, tough mentality that Piston fans, especially the longer-term ones, remember from the success they had with the bad boys. I just think that's all stuff that they recognize up there, and they're putting it to good use with some really talented guys.
I agree completely. And sometimes it takes a moment like that in a chippy game or a rivalry game for a team to come together. I mean, you remember the Pacers' best stretch of the season last year was not long after the game ball thing happened.
Yeah.
In that game against the Bucks, and then Halliburton got hurt, and it kind of all tumbled until they traded for Siakam. But sometimes those moments, it hurts, and you get punched in the mouth, and you look flimsy, and that was what happened when the Pistons came to Indy this year, and Isaiah Stewart smoked Thomas Bryant for no reason and got ejected, and then they got humbled by a team they were talking crap against the time before, and all of a sudden they've really come together and looked great. And part of me keeps wondering, man, can they really keep this up? This roster doesn't look like it should be this good, and then every time I watch them, they just look fantastic, right? So maybe they can. That'd be a fun series.
It's Tony East talking Pacers on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. The Pacers get the Rockets in a back-to-back situation. Rockets tonight in OKC. They get the Rockets coming up tomorrow night at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Rockets, in case you have not seen them this season, incredibly talented, no doubt about that. I did want to mention this as far as the Pacers are concerned, looking longer term here, and our focus normally has surrounded regarding how they deal with Miles after the season. But how far they go in this postseason going to dictate how far they go with maintaining, or how drastically or lack thereof they decide to facelift this squad when the season is done?
Obviously, how far they go is part of it, but pretending they play, let's say, Milwaukee in the first round, if they play the Bucks and Giannis looks awesome and they lose in 6 games, are you really going to change are you really going to make massive changes if that happens? It's hard to see how that would really sting you. Giannis is amazing, but if they get embarrassed by somebody in the first round, or even if they win a round and then just the Cleveland Cavaliers just give them the business for 4 or 5 games, you can't feel good if you're the Pacers about how close you are to contending, despite having 2 players making the max on your team, and they've earned those contracts this year. But they have to figure out how good they really are, and last season's playoffs were a part of that. But it not only will winning rounds be telling to me, I think you'll just kind of feel it. If they get embarrassed by somebody, which I guess you could say that happened with Boston last year, but they kept it close a lot, and Halliburton got hurt, and no one really felt that way.
And they couldn't inbound the ball. They couldn't inbound the ball, too.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, and they played good for 46 minutes in 3 games, but it's a 48-minute game, right? So, I think that kind of will dictate how it goes. Even if they lose in the second round, but it's, a 7-game series against Boston or Cleveland, they'll go, okay, that's good. We were close with one of those teams. We got to be better to beat them and get upgrades to make that happen. But I think that would be an acceptable outcome, versus if they just get smoked by somebody, or if they lose in the first round and don't look nearly as good as last year's postseason team. That would lead them to think about, okay, how do we get better? Who needs to get better on this team? Who can we and can we not live without? So the way the East is set up and the way the Pacers bracket is, it honestly is going to depend more on how it feels than the actual results, because the Bucks are good, right? The Bucks have beaten them twice this year. Giannis is amazing. If they play Detroit, I think any loss would make them think about where they are, honestly. But outside of that, it's kind of just going to be how it feels in the moment and how competitive they look. And the thing is, they've shown through these last 2 years they can beat anybody at any time. So if they all of a sudden can't do that, it's going to feel really painful, and they'll have to look in the mirror and figure out how to get better. But it's totally going to be feel to me, and not necessarily just this is the line in the sand where it's not good enough versus good enough.
Hey, really quick before I let you go here, you think that Miles coming back and extended is going to be set in stone in the offseason, or is that still kind of decision-wise flapping in the so-called breeze?
Set in stone is never a thing in the NBA, I've come to learn. I think we all had the fun Alex Len times earlier this month or last month to really learn about all that. But, it's got to be the very heavy favorite to be the move they make this summer. I mean, he's quite good. As weird as February was for the Pacers, it did certainly show how good Miles Turner is. They stunk without him, and then he came back and was playing great, and they won some games against great teams. And that's what's kind of been his reality for years, and he fits extremely well with their star players. I mean, unless Miles Turner gets an insane offer from another team that needs a center, which It does not seem like at the moment, this could change obviously, but at the moment there's even going to be a team with the cap space to do that. I have my suspicion would be that the strong favorite would be him re-signing or extending his deal with the Pacers, yes.
The Miles argument for me is almost like a drug now, so I'd go through withdrawal, I think. Social media withdrawal.
The trade deadline's over now. It's so easy to do the conversation, right? And
yeah.
Do they sign him or not? And I think the more interesting question is where are they going to land it with the final deal? Is it, do they have to trade away someone else to keep him? Because
then I'll really take it then, especially if it's somebody everybody likes. Woo, I'll take it then big. So
that's when it'll be tricky. But he's better than the guys they would have to move on from, right? So it's all very I'm not in their front office, so I don't have to make these decisions, but that would be what would eat at me more as one of their decision makers, is who am I willing to part with, or what salary am I willing to trade for a smaller salary in order to keep Miles Turner, because that is what I think is going to be the more interesting discussion come June, July.
Houston tomorrow night, back-to-back in Atlanta Thursday, Saturday, back at home against the Bulls. In Chicago against the Bulls at the United Center on Monday. And then a stretch on March the 11th, Milwaukee, Philly, Milwaukee, Minnesota, Dallas. That's tough right there. Tony East will, I'm sure, be with us again, the newlywed, to help document it about what is going on without telling us exactly what his bar bill was for the reception. I respect that, brother. I do. Congratulations again from us.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Always fun.
Tony East on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. All right, quick break. We'll come back. Stephen Holder, top of the hour. So who out there buys this competition at quarterback stuff from the Colts? If you do, why do you? Do you ever ask yourself, why is it necessary? Or do you draw the conclusion, like me, that there's a lot of lip service and making sure that you, the fans, and some of the media take into the fact that, hey, there's a big competition because things haven't been right for the past 2 years, and now we're going to make sure that they're right with the competition. Who buys it? If you do, why? Quick break. We'll come back, discuss Mary J. Blige tickets to give away a little bit later on, too. Sit tight. 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
JMV.
We have the holy hand grenade.
Yes, of course. The holy hand grenade of Antioch. Right. 1, 2, 5. 3, sir. 3.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Tony East a little bit earlier, podcast 1075thefan.com, and Tyrese Halliburton has played since the All-Star break exactly in the fashion, has he not, in which we had hoped. What is that, 69 assists to 6 turnovers in that span? You know how incredible that is? I'm telling you, too, not only for everybody else setting the table, but also getting his offensive groove back. That is huge. James over there, I'm John. Full discussion for you. Greg chimes in on this. Walker reminds me of one of those guys that hits 30 home runs in the minor leagues and can't hit in the big leagues. So I'm glad he brought that up. Who would that be? Like Russell Branyan? For some reason, Russell Branyan and Kevin Moss immediately come to mind. Am I wrong? No, Crash Davis is fictional from Bull Durham, but that would be kind of the same. So Jarace Walker is Crash Davis. Am I wrong about that? What did Ken Phelps? Ken Phelps, legendary because he was referenced in the Seinfeld episode about a George Steinbrenner deal in the 90s where Jay Buhner was traded to the Mariners for Ken Phelps. Well, we like Ken Phelps' bet. Ken Phelps. Now, he had some years, at least a couple of heavy hitting home runs in Major League Baseball, but was he more than that in minor league baseball? A lot of guys, I'm sure, would come to mind. But I thought that was an interesting reference right there. And immediately my mind went to Russell Branyan and Kevin Moss. And maybe not a real reason to. I don't know why they popped into my head. Yeah, Bobby Boom says go with Razor Shines. Shout out to Razor Shines. Skivvy says, why does your shirt not have Brazier on it? I don't know. It's just the original Dairy Queen logo. I guess maybe not the complete original, but it is very early stages Dairy Queen logo. I do not know because I guess it's not the sign, it's the logo. If it were the sign, remember the sign beneath this logo said home of the Brazier. And I never knew what the hell that was. I go, Brazier, all right, give me a Brazier. What the hell is that? We knew what a Big Mac was. You knew what a Whopper was. Did not know what a Brazier was. Thank you. J-Law writes this, so I wish Leal would have received more playing time earlier in the year. Anthony Leal plus 26 tonight on the road against Washington without scoring the basketball. Plays winning basketball. No points, but my guy had 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 blocks, 2 steals, 0 turnovers. 3 guys from the state of Indiana, and I'm sorry it is necessary here to get it, to understand, and you see that. You talk about the value of having deep pockets in the world of NIL. How about the value of having somebody from the state of Indiana that plays their ass off because they know what IU basketball and basketball in the state of Indiana means? I know having deep NIL pockets is a big deal, but so is the other situation. Detroit deserves a good team. Did Tony say that? That's pretty funny. I think Detroit right now, I think that they act like, against the Pacers certainly they act like jackasses. I think that helps their cause right now. I think it has helped their cause. Think about that. They've lost 3 games going all the way back to that January 29th game that had the situations going on in it, remember? At Cambridge Fieldhouse, 3 games. They are legit. JMV, now I want some chocolate soft serve cone from DQ. Big fan of DQ. When was the blizzard invented? 1983? I'm doing research right here. Thank you for that. From Greg, thanks for the South Knox Lady Spartan shout-out. You were right. Our fans brought it Saturday. It was a giant reunion. And we dig on giant reunion. Let me tell you that. I need a giant reunion, too. Alumni from all over flew in or drove in to see it. Good kids, for sure. Nah, Greg, you were right. It looked like a Gainbridge Fieldhouse. In the morning session, and especially in Game 2, the 2A game with South Knox. South Knox and Rensselaer Central. I'm not going to suggest nobody showed up from Rensselaer, but it looked like it was a very pro South Knox crowd, and it was loud and packed. At least the way that it sounded on the radio. Incredible. JMV, completely agree with your assessment of the Colts quarterback situation. It is year 3 of Richardson or bust. The competition part notwithstanding, you need a quality backup because you know at some point he's going to be injured. But as far as this being some sort of contest, it won't be. And really, it shouldn't be. And you, my friend Al, are 100% accurate. It won't be, and it shouldn't be. There's a reason why we're all sitting here right now. We're sitting here right now because if it wasn't going to be Richardson, and if you figure that out at the start of the year, and it's going to be Daniel Jones or Jacoby Brissett or Trey Lance or James Adams, you talk about a wasted year. And then those of us that felt you just need to go ahead and turn the page would be more accurate than we are accurate sitting here telling you that right now. That's your only hope, Obi-Wan, is if Richardson finally evolves into what some have believed and what his younger generational fan base thinks pops right out of a video game, which has at least not been true so far. I'm not telling you it's not going to happen, but it's going to be given, as it has been so far, every single opportunity. This whole competition thing is, I know some buy it, and believe me, they're saying what they have to say because they know that's what you want to hear right now. You want to hear about the quality competition at each position, including quarterback. I mean, it wasn't about competition when they benched him middle of the season. And you can argue, all right, it was about his lack of understanding of the level of leadership. Okay. But it was more about they felt that Joe Flacco at that moment gave them the better chance to win. That's not what it's going to be about at the start of the year coming out of training camp. So, JMV, I go to B&L my freshman and sophomore year. That's Bedford North Lawrence, everybody. Shout out to Tonda Best Hideaway. Then Dad moved us to South Knox my junior and senior year. The culture is so much better. That school is amazing and a giant family. I was blessed to go there and graduate in 2016. Congratulations to the Lady Spartans of South Knox. What are the towns in South Knox, Jeff? Is it like Decker? I mean, I know what the towns in North Knox. North Knox is what? Edwardsport? Because if you're going to Vincennes and Vincennes University, as I did for like 2 years, you end up going down 67. Edwardsport, Bicknell. What is that? Somethingville on the way there? So if you're going down 67, that's North Knox. Is like Decker or South Knox in and around the communities. Big crowd there, though. Very impressive. James says break, and we'll do so. Top of the hour, Stephen Holder. We'll talk about the combine. The other opinion I had is if Warren is the best tight end in this draft, and he is anywhere in the general vicinity of the Colts, don't jack around. Move up if you need to and get what you have to add to this roster, Can you see them trading for somebody? Can you see them setting the table like that? No, you don't. You see them trading back for somebody they believe has value in the later rounds. If you identify your target and you have to move up a little bit to secure, especially one of that level of importance that would be viewed clearly better than anybody else, for God's sake, do it. I'm so sick and tired of hearing about trading back and securing picks and value picks. All these fifth-round value picks, and these dudes all are looking for a new gig in August. Identify and then go get, especially with that, which is such an obvious need. Stephen Holder about that and more coming up in the next 14 minutes. Don't go anywhere. The AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
The Ride with JMV.
Collect them, trade them, or just enjoy them.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Stephen Holder's going to join us from ESPN. Top of the hour for that. Greg says South Knox towns. I was right about Decker being one. Vern, Monroe City. Wheatland is one I forgot. The reason why I know that, so I go to Vincennes for 2 years, right, and I'm on a station down there that's actually in Davis Hall. I don't know if it still is or not. Maybe James would know because he attended Vincennes. But it was WFML. Back then it was 96.7 WFML. And it was Hot Country. And Hot Country WFML, it not only had me playing Hot Country like Eddie Raven and Bayou. Is it Bayou Boys by Eddie Raven?
I'm not a country guy.
Yeah, hell, I'm not either. I was on the station. But I played Hot Country from the Country Compact Disc. That was like an innovation back then as they started playing compact discs. I was a freshman.
Really?
At Vincennes. Yeah, and I had a Monday night shift on Hot Country. I would say, right now from Country Compact Disc, here's Eddie Raven and Bayou Boys. But they would have these liners that said, Monroe City is WFML country. That's how I know. Decker's WFML country. They had the Cardinal games, too. Sometimes I had to run Cardinal games with Mike Shannon back in the day. So thank you very much, Greg, for that. South Knox Town, South Knox, your 2A champion, which was a big damn deal, as you could tell. Hey, give me Kent at 239-1070. James, Kent, welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
Good to talk to you again. Your question about Brazier and Dairy Queen?
Yes.
Well, I used to be work at a Dairy Queen Brazier back in 1968.
You did?
Yeah, and the only reason why they said Brazier is because back then Dairy Queen usually did not have a grill, and all that extra sign was just added to say, hey, we also serve, hamburgers and hot dogs and stuff like that.
So did they just make up a word with that?
I don't know about that. I can't tell you that. All I just know is the fact that that's all it signified was you could also get hot food there, I guess, so to speak, besides just ice cream cones.
Wow. That must be before somebody got smart with advertising or something. That's weird.
Well, it was the 60s.
I'm looking at right. Brazier is a container used to burn charcoal or other solid fuel for cooking, heating, or rituals. Did you guys ever have a ritual in your Dairy Queen back in the 60s?
No
rituals performed back there?
The grill was gas-fired, although, obviously there was flames as soon as you threw the frozen burger on the grill, it'd flame up a little bit or something.
What town was this?
That was Fortville.
Fortville. So there no Dairy Queen rituals in the late 60s in Fortville is what you're telling me?
Nope.
All right, then. Makes sense.
Yep.
Thank you, Ken. I appreciate the update. Brazier, a portable heater consisting of a pan or a stand for holding lighted coals. There's zero way. Two things here, James. Anybody out there ever knew that? Number two, anybody ever cared about knowing that? All falls in line. Mary J. Blige, the queen of R&B and hip-hop. Cambridge Fieldhouse tickets. When you hear Family Affair as a re-entry, boom, number 9 is going to go on me. We got that coming up. And the competition aspect. Buzzword, lip service, or for real. Stephen Holder has that and his likes, maybe dislikes, of the 2025 NFL Combine. ESPN.com, Stephen Holder, AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live and 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan. He joins us next.
under 5 feet tall.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
I watched IndyCar yesterday from St. Pete. The presentation on Fox was really good. Sometimes the racing, it could be just me. I go, But the presentation I thought was really nice. Shout out to our good friend Kevin Lee. Kay Lee was a part of it. Anybody else dig on the Fox presentation? What was really good is it was actually on Fox, and hopefully this will hold true. And I don't have to look for it on MSNBC or CNBC or something. That was great. But officially underway. And I know how you feel about that. Normally, when IndyCar starts, it gets you in the feel that the warmer temperatures, spring, summer, and I do feel the same way. But I thought the presentation was outstanding yesterday. Am I wrong? Especially by some of you old IndyCar hats out there. Pacers off tonight. Pacers with the Rockets. Rockets, the second of a back-to-back tomorrow night here at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. They get OKC. Coming up later on tonight. By the way, Houston is incredibly talented. If you did not know that, the Rockets on the inbound will be a tough get for sure. Pacers 34-25 overall in a very jumbled 4, 5, and 6 situation right now. All three, Pacers, Bucks, and Pistons, 34-win squads. Back to that, more in just a second on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline right now. Stephen Holder of ESPN wrapping up incredible wall-to-wall coverage at the NFL Combine 2025, has taken a deep breath and is joining us right now. What's the big standout here? Give me both the positive and the negative that you got out of this past week at the Combine.
Positive. I do think that this draft, in terms of its strengths, I think it kind of matches up with the Colts' needs. That's not always the case, but I do think that's the case here. So I'm talking about the positions, right? The exact positions.
Are you talking about the need to trade back? I had to joke about that. Yeah. There's always a need there, too. It's almost like you start twitching if you don't trade back. But go ahead. I get where you're going.
Right. So on that note, someone asked me on Twitter, hey, what are the odds that Chris Ballard trades up to get player X? I can't remember who it was. And I was like, are you really asking this question? Like, are you new here? Like, the man's traded down 3 times. He's never traded up. I'll believe it when he does it.
Well, and that's the difference he's talked about. This is a new attitude. He's like Patti LaBelle is going to start singing a tune next week for us. That new attitude. I'm feeling good from my head to my shoes. I'm Chris Ballard. I have got a new attitude.
Okay. Something like that. We'll see. Well, listen, we're at the show me, don't tell me.
Yeah, we are.
Right?
There's no question.
And I'm not saying that trading down is always a bad thing. It's not. I mean, I've been in favor of some of them, but anyway, the point is, I will continue with my original point. So I think the strengths of this draft, or some of the positions of strength, they match up with where the Colts' needs are. So that gives you options. And I'm talking specifically, I think, defensive line, which is always going to be a target for Ballard, right, as you know. Defensive line, tight end, I think defensive back, particularly some safeties in the upper reaches of this draft, and then tight end. So they could actually be in good shape here if they play this right and target some guys. I mean, look, the board has to fall your way, and that you have no control over, but it increases your odds of getting players at the positions they need. And I'm not saying you're always hostage to just need specifically, but you do you do look for those matchups, right? Those matches with strength in the draft, et cetera. And it even has some I think it has some influence on what you do in free agency. You know, if you feel like there are positions that are going to be harder to address in the draft, you probably give those a little more weight in free agency, for example, right? So So I think that's something to watch here as we go forward. I guess that's the good news. The bad news, I'd say they're kind of making it up as they go at quarterback. That's what I kind of think about that. I'm not saying that it's wrong to bring in another quarterback. Of course, they're going to bring in another quarterback, but the framing of this is very odd to me, and I'm not sure that it's helpful to anybody here. But
no, it's not. It's lip service and it's silly, I think. And you're right. It's going. There's zero way in the world there's some open competition with a healthy Anthony Richardson going into year number 3. There's just no way. No, and nor should there be, really. Now, yeah, a competent one to bring in because at some point he's going to be injured. Sure, we've seen that for the first 2 years, and you're going to get that in year 3. But a competition, and I would agree with you, it really does kind of muddy the water all the way around about, all right, so, what is the level of competition and when is it not a competition, I guess, Stephen?
Yeah, I mean, I have a story coming out this week. I don't know, maybe tomorrow or Wednesday, and I'm going to address this further. But I think what I would say on a base level is this: there are a lot of contradictions here, and I get that the situation is complicated. So I do appreciate that. I understand, but there are a lot of contradictions, and I think the main one is where. You tell us that he's young, he needs to continue to play, to get experience, et cetera. I believe all of that. I agree with all of that. But then if you truly want to have a quarterback battle, well, then what does that look like? That looks like sharing reps. That looks like one guy starts one preseason game, the other guy starts the other one. And you start to get into a situation like that. I mean, if you call it if you're really calling it a quarterback competition, then you got to conduct yourself like it's a freaking quarterback competition. And I think that complicates things a lot. If you're talking about this young, talented quarterback who just can't figure it out, if you say he needs playing time, well, he's going to get less of it under that scenario. In terms of development, I mean, what's the plan in OTAs, right? Do we have a situation where one guy takes snaps one day, one guy the next day? I mean, that's not helpful to Anthony Richardson in the grand scheme. So I just wonder, what's this going to look like, and are they actually moving forward in the fashion they claim? Because that complicates things a lot. That's all I'm saying.
This level of competition, because we know this time next week we're going to be talking about the legalized tampering period here. You mentioned that free agency will dictate terms on how they handle the April NFL draft. So how quickly do you have to get involved in this quarterback situation coming up here in a week plus if you plan on having some sort of heavy competition with Anthony Richardson there?
Well, I think it probably depends on where when and where and how the other dominoes fall. So I'm talking about a quarterback. So one has already fallen, and that is Matthew Stafford. So that's one domino. I don't think that has a ton.
And they didn't consider that as an option anyway.
No. I don't mean it that way.
Okay.
What I'm saying is in terms of getting clarity on what the quarterback market looks like and so forth, right? So when one domino falls, then the next team in the market, they act, and so on and so forth. So I don't know where the Colts are in that whole hierarchy. But they will be, their situation will be dependent on other situations. Okay, so they will probably not be the first team to sign a quarterback, because they're not after maybe the top quarterbacks out there. We'll see what happens with Sam Darnold. Is he a free agent? Is he franchised? But unless that's happened in the last little bit, I've been a little bit unplugged. But we'll see. I think it'll be a domino situation, and I don't know how many dominoes down the line the Colts are, but they're probably not number one. So it'll take a little bit. But I mean, there's the Daniel Jones conversation that's been going around. My colleague Jeremy Fowler threw that out there. I concur on that. That's the one that I thought made the most sense. I've heard his name as well. I assumed that they would be in on him. Is he real competition? Maybe. But I think ultimately, let's be honest here. what is the best scenario for the Colts? The best scenario for everybody involved here, including Anthony Richardson, is that he steps up and he makes it clear that he's the guy and that he wins. It is much more important to them that Anthony Richardson win this job if it's a true competition. That is the best outcome for everybody involved. Chris Ballard, Shane Steichen, and Anthony Richardson.
So Stephen Holder of ESPN, ESPN.com is on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. So you're talking about dictating terms here. How much will playing time versus how much you're going to make? What are the? I guess this all depends on who you end up targeting as far as this so-called competition. But I for the life of me, I don't know any of these guys. To me, are so low on the ladder here. I don't know why you're trying to sell that as legit competition. I know that that's what the fans want to hear. Yeah, because Chris Ballard brought that up back in January with you guys at that year-ending presser. But I just don't think it's useful, nor is it something you need to do right now, because everybody in the world knows what is going to sink it and what is going to swim with it. And that's that, basically.
I agree with you wholeheartedly on I think asking the question of what it accomplishes. Listen, I am a reporter. We love honesty. Okay, we love when they tell us the truth, or when they tell us what's on their minds, what's really on their minds. Right? We like that, as opposed to stock answers and just kind of making the question go away. So I realize the contradiction, my own contradiction here. Right? That being said, just taking myself out of it as someone who seeks that information, I don't think it really accomplishes much to say the quarterback who has played 17 games for you, whose confidence wavered at times last year, and who you kind of threw under the bus at arguably at times last year. I'm not sure that it accomplishes anything to say, yeah, you know what, he's going to have to earn his job next year, and we're not sure if he's our guy. Because that's what they said. All right. Like, I don't care how you phrase it. That is, in practice, what it actually means. Okay. Now, that can be true. That can be true. And no one should just walk in and be handed anything. Right. That being said, just keep your powder dry, man, and just do what you got to do and let it play out. That's what I would have done. You've now staked a claim here, and you've kind of painted yourself into a corner, because if you don't have sort of a legitimate quarterback battle, or you sign a guy who's not really worthy of being in a quarterback battle, well, then you look kind of silly. And it's going to lead to other questions. So I'm kind of surprised that he went there. But, hey, I mean, he's given us content, and I'm not upset about that. But I am a little, I guess, flummoxed by what it all accomplished.
Are these guys going to battle in these preseason games too? And I guess that's going to take away any option you're going to have to sit a guy down, because they don't need the reps, because I guess in a quarterback evaluation and competition, you're going to need the reps, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's what this is, man. I mean, and I just say, like I said earlier, I mean, you're putting yourself in a situation where the guy who needs reps more than anybody is going to get fewer reps with the starting offense. So does that help or hurt development? It hurts, undoubtedly. It has to, right? Maybe they are doing the right thing in the grand scheme. Maybe they find a gem here and it works out, and this ends up being a good decision. But I mean, for this to really work out, they've got to be really good. That guy has to play well, and they got to be really good. Because if you're just marginally better, then what have you accomplished? All you've done is now basically made a decision on the long-term future of your first-round pick, and you get to the end of 2025 and still don't have a long-term quarterback. So where are you then, right? I just don't know what is the best case scenario here, I guess. You know what I mean? What is the best case scenario here? And if it's not Anthony Richardson, I'm saying. the best case scenario, I think, with this other quarterback, whoever the hell it ends up being, is that the guy plays okay and that your team is only a little bit better and you've really not gained anything. So I wonder where that leaves you.
Yeah, well, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, and to me, it just, if you're trying to make sense of it, I have suggested it sounds more, unfortunately, and this is the type of evidence we have right now with this team in recent history. It sounds more like lip service than it does anything else to me.
Well, I will tell you, my observation here is this. This is a little out of character for Chris Ballard, and I think it's possibly a reflection of a guy who knows he's under some heat. That might be the other thing that we're maybe overlooking here. You know, he usually is very measured, usually is very conservative in the claims and statements that he makes, and here he's just, you know, going all the way with it. Hey, you know, it's wide open, best man going to win. We'll see what happens. You know, he's not reluctant to commit to the quarterback, all that. I mean, that's a little out of character for Chris Ballard, and it's an interesting observation, I guess is what I'm saying.
Stephen Older of ESPN, ESPN.com. He's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Back to the Combine, and then we'll get to the Colts and the legal tampering period that begins this time coming up next week. Tyler Warren's a guy that I have said this, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just going to go so high where there's no way. But to me, this stands out as clear as day. And if he's anywhere in your general vicinity, would you move your ass up and go get him, please? And don't try to sell on somebody that's close but not further in the draft. I know it's not that clean of a take that I have right here, but doesn't it make a little bit of sense to you, especially in terms of somebody that seems to have tried to sell us on a change in philosophy?
Yeah, I guess I'd say I think what they need is a difference maker. Okay, I mean, and I know that's a very vague way of phrasing it, but they need a difference maker, and by that, what I mean is, I think a guy who can help them now. I mean, look, if you're truly on the hot seat, who cares if that guy plays well in 2 years? It doesn't get you very far, right? You got to put together a team that can move the ball a little bit, and I don't mean that literally. I mean figuratively. Like they have to have progress here. They have to progress, and so there are going to be some guys who could help them immediately. You know, I'm just throwing this out there. You mentioned Tyler Warren. Clearly, he's an upgrade just by walking in the door based on what they have at tight end. Then you have guys like Malachi Starks from Georgia, safety. Yeah. I like that kid. I think I know that the Colts do. I do know that for a fact. I have no idea where he's on the board and all that. It's way too early. All I'm saying is that is a guy, just based on the secondary that they have currently, right? That's an upgrade right there. That's a guy who steps in and could be a playmaker. So I think that should be how they're thinking about this. You know, positional value matters, of course, but for the Colts, I think it's really just about difference makers, man. They don't have enough of them, and they have a lot of good players, but do they have, guys who can change games? That's what they need. That's quite frankly what they need. But anyway, specifically on Tyler Warren, I did get a little intel on that. They are definitely in the mix for sure, the Colts. The question there is going to be, I think his camp is getting some indications that teams above them, just in the picks, the few picks before them, are pretty serious about him too. There are a couple of landing spots there. I don't know which ones, but there are a couple of teams prior to the Colts that are legitimate landing spots for him. So, we'll see. You mentioned trade up. I'm not suggesting they're going to do that. I wouldn't bet on it. But if that's someone you love, or if there's someone else you love, that may come to that.
Yeah, I just think that stands out to me, positionally speaking, more than anything else. And especially considering his talent, and maybe there are some other ones that fall into the category, but it appears from what people that know that he was a positional standout, head and shoulders above those around him. We'll see how that plays out, I'm sure, coming up in this entire process of pro days and then leading up to the draft. But I just think that if it's in your general vicinity, you owe it, if you're really going to change that attitude, to go up and get it.
Now, the one thing I would say is that you do have – I mentioned that this is a really good tight end draft. Now, I get it, right? Tyler Warren is probably on a different level than most of these guys, but you do have a handful of guys worth considering here, even if you don't get Warren. And I'm talking about not just with that first pick, but even their first couple picks, their first 3 picks. I mean, you got Loveland from Michigan. You got to think about him. He's going to be in the mix, possible first round pick. We'll see. Mason Taylor, for example, Arroyo from Miami, big kid. So there's some options there. It's a deep tight end group, and they don't have to do it with the first pick. But if you love this kid, if you love him, and you're the Colts, then for you that's a big difference maker because of the state of that current tight end unit in Indianapolis.
Stephen Holder's with us. How do you think they're going to handle their own? We're going to see any changes with guys, and I guess we start with Braden Smith at right tackle. How do you think the approach is going to be beginning next week and then moving forward here?
Can I tell you that it has been more difficult to get any intel on what's going on with Braden Smith than just about anything I've had to deal with.
And that makes it incredibly concerning.
Yes.
It does.
I don't know anything. I don't say that flippantly. I'm saying, it's just been really hard to ascertain any information. They have kept that very close to the vest, and so it's really also hard to forecast how this is going to go. Here's one thing that I'm willing to say on the record, which is this: he cannot, if he does play here, he cannot play on that $19 million cap number. That's not doable. Not for a guy who's been dealing with a really long-running knee issue and is dealing with whatever is ailing him beyond football, right? Illness, something of that sort, right? So I don't know what it looks like, Braden Smith playing here next year if he does, but I can tell you that I don't see a scenario where he plays on that current contract. I just don't think that's doable for the Colts. So we'll see how they navigate that, or if he plays at all, right? I mean, we don't even know that. So it's a really, really tough situation to talk about because we just don't have enough detail.
What about the right side of the offensive line in general? How's that going to look?
Yeah. I'm telling you, I think this could be the biggest shift we've seen on this offensive line since Quentin Nelson and Braden Smith and company walked in the door. This is going to be a reshaped offensive line potentially. Will Fries is a really interesting situation there at right guard. The Colts love him, but so do a lot of other teams. The question there for me is, will his health have any influence on his free agency? I just don't know that answer yet. I would tell you that when we last talked to him at the end of the season, he was still very early in the rehab portion of this, and he said at that time, and went back and reread that interview yesterday or over the weekend, and one of the things that struck me was at that time, not now, but at that time in early January, he was still working in the pool in terms of his rehab, and the reason you do that is to keep weight off of that leg. So he had not progressed to a point where he was working on the field in his rehab. He was doing it while, he may have good movement and so forth, range of motion and what have you, but he was working in the pool. And that's on the earlier side of the rehab session, or rehab period. Now, this injury, I believe, happened in week 6, I believe. So it's been a while. It had been a while at that point, and he was still there. So it was a pretty devastating injury. He tore up that leg pretty bad, a couple fractures in there. So I just don't know. It's a really hard thing to forecast because I just don't know if that health will be impacted. The good news is The Colts have more information than anybody else. They're the ones who have been rehabbing him, working with him, et cetera. So they're going to have the insight, and they'll know how to proceed. If he's healthy. Interior offensive linemen have been getting paid in today's NFL, the big-time guys. And he would be in that group if he is, in fact, healthy or will be soon.
All right. So this time next week, because at noon, March the 10th, it is all officially underway. You think we'll be talking about anything on those early stages?
I think they'll be in on some guys. The question is always, do they close the deal? I mean, look, they'll call. They're going to call. I can tell you that they've had conversations with lots of possible free agents and hypotheticals. That is happening. I can tell you. How far are they willing to go? Is this new and improved Chris Ballard, this version of Chris Ballard, is he willing to be more, pliable or more flexible, I guess, with his price tags? In the past, he has been very happy to tell us we set a price and we don't move off that price for a guy. Will he change that this year? Does he need to? Is the owner okay with that? All these questions, I think that's going to be really what determines how it ends. But will they call? Will they be involved in conversations? I anticipate, yes, they will be. What happens from there? TBD.
We're going to be talking about a Holland or a Reed conversation this time next week. That's my prediction.
I like the idea of Holland. I do think that I've seen some estimates on what that might cost. You're talking Javon Holland from Miami, the safety. I like him a lot. He's coming off a down year. Does that give you a little bit of advantage as a suitor? I don't know, but I've seen some contract projections for him that are on the high side. I'm not so sure that's where the numbers come in. But I mean, if you could, let's just say, you can get him at 14 to 16 million a year. I don't know. Maybe I might be willing to do that. I don't know. I would say this, Lou Anarumo, I think give that man a talented safety and let him do his thing. Okay. He's proven that is a big part of his success. And then we have seen other safeties in the league and the impact that they can make. I mean, different player, but just look at Kyle Hamilton in Baltimore. Take him off of that defense, and then you tell me that safeties are not a premium position, right? It depends on the player. The player is the premium. Premium players are premium players, no matter what position, right? So we'll see what happens, but that's an interesting name for sure. For me.
All right, even more fun conversation outside of competition. Maybe we will be discussing quarterback competition this time next week, but we'll see. It's Stephen Holder on the Indy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Should be fun either way, though. We'll see if there's a new attitude. Patty LaBelle coming up next week. So
we will see. We will see.
Thank you, Stephen.
You got it.
Stephen Holder on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Let me take a break. It's me and you, rest of the way at 239-1070. Email address jmv1075thefan.com. Inside the AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live. A busy week, the remainder, and a little stretch for the Pacers coming up here. The Rockets tomorrow night, and then on the road back-to-back in a 3-day period in Atlanta, and then on the road with the Bulls coming up a week from tonight. So Houston at a premium in town tomorrow night. The Rockets on the road with OKC coming up later on tonight. The first of a back-to-back situation. Pacers regular season stretch run. That's why we've talked about the schedule, talked about taking advantage of it. You get on an upward ramp to the postseason. This is where it should begin to happen. Back with that and more with you next. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. Classic journey, James. Crank it up. That's a hell of a good song right here, James. The wheel in the sky keeps on turning. JMV, when'd you get down with Patti LaBelle? That was a good Stephen Holder, Patti LaBelle, Chris Ballard, New Attitude reference. Thank you. That 1985 was good for me right there. Rutgers Boilermakers tomorrow night. I'm assuming, is that a Peacock or two? It's a 7 o'clock start with Rutgers and Purdue in Mackey. Man, Friday night. Friday night at Illinois. You got to go back-to-back Friday nights. I'm just not a fan of it. That's going to be tough. You guys watch Illinois absolutely depants my dude squad yesterday in Ann Arbor. I mean, I shucked them. It was ugly. Yeah, I don't know what that means about Illinois. I don't know if that means more about Dusty in Michigan. Michigan State just keeps on moving. I mentioned, too, IU. I think this, I mentioned dictating terms to Stephen Holder a little bit earlier. This, a win to me, and you're in the NCAA tournament scenario. Now, obviously, on Saturday, after you don't want to be losing to Ohio State at home, but you know what I mean. I think that you take care of this, you should feel solidified. That's tomorrow night at 9, 7, check that, 8 coverage begins 93 WIBC. Trey Galloway, I've also highlighted him for IU, both he and Leal along with Goody. Part of the reason why we have seen a turnaround for the better is just Hoosier State dudes recognizing, besides NIL and, you know, all this other stuff, you know, you're coming in because you're getting paid. More so than that, it's, well, this is what it's supposed to be about from this state, that recognition. And you can suggest that I'm wrong or I'm overstating it, but you would be wrong yourself, so don't. It's true. And it's something you've actually seen. I saw this from, I forget where he writes. This is Pigs. Jared Kelly had mentioned this earlier today. Trey Galloway is right now with 973 career points and 414 career assists. If Galloway gets to the 1,000 career points, he'll become only the 7th Hoosier ever to eclipse both 1,000 points and 400 assists. Now, again, it's a different time and playing longer and all that, but understand Yogi, Quinn, Tommy C., that's our Coverdale, Bailey, Whitman, and Guyton are the others. Just beyond that, though, the numbers that I'm talking about, it is the recognition of 3 guys that have helped the cause because they have the understanding of it just being more than, hey, they're going to give me all this money and I'm going to go play there because that's the most. These guys get it. And you have seen the results. I asked the question regarding IndyCar on Fox yesterday, and Jason answered as follows. I'd give them a B+. Their morning warm-up show on Fox Sports 2 was great. Their broadcast just seemed cleaner, had some flaws, but easy fixes. I watched every session. Coverage was great. This is something that I thought I noticed, and I could be completely full of crap, and you guys are going to be shocked and dismayed that that could be the case. Maybe I'm just full of crap. But it felt like that there were a hell of a lot more advertisements. At St. Pete, on the track, or the course itself, and it just seemed like that they were higher level and a lot more advertising. Am I right or wrong? Anybody else get that feeling in watching that yesterday on Fox? The JFF writes this. That's Joseph Fenton Faust to you. Thoughts on those black alternative jerseys that they wore last game? I mean, usually pretty traditional, but those were slick. I thought that those black jerseys were badass. I did. I liked them. And believe me, there's nobody older school and stuck in their ways than my old crusty ass right here. But even my old crusty ass could embrace those uniforms. I loved them. Loved the way that they looked on Saturday. Even if a lot of you, because we're old and crusty, didn't see it because it was peacocked in the middle of Saturday. No, seriously, JFF, I was down with it. I'm assuming there are a lot of other people that are with me being down with those black uniforms. And the script, I was digging on the script. I'm with you. Mike's in Brooklyn at 239-1070. Hello, Mike. How are you?
JMV, what's up? Nice journey reference there. I seen him live at the Garden back in the day.
Did they do "Wheel in the Sky Keeps on Turning"? Oh, that's a good ass song right there, Mike in Brooklyn.
You got it.
What's up, buddy?
Hey, listen. Now that the combine is over, I've been thinking. If I was Jim Irsay, I might consider limiting Chris Ballard's exposure to all that data, because that seems what's been his biggest downfall. All that relative athletic scores and traits and measurables. If you look at all his draft picks that he's hit on, most of them have all been productive college players. It's those athletic projections that has been his downfall.
So you're going with the eyeball test over the severe level of analytics.
Absolutely.
I'm digging it. I like what you're telling me.
Yeah. If I'm Irsay, I'm saying, listen, if you're going to present me with these players, I want to hear about what kind of football players they've been and what kind of football players you think they're going to be. I don't care with all that other nonsense about relative athletic scores and all that other stuff.
No, I'm with you. No, I'm completely with you. And again, this would be me, because I've described myself as old and crusty ass. But I am definitely with you on that. Sometimes the eyeball test should be what matters the most. So I would agree with you. And sometimes you don't have to make this as difficult as everybody already knows that it is. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. You overthink, overanalysis, paralysis, type of deal. Yeah.
What else you got, Mike in Brooklyn?
I'm with you. The way to go, free agency. We need a big-time free agent safety, and we need a number one corner, veteran guys.
You're going to sink a lot of cash in Javon Holland, as I was advocating a little bit earlier?
Yeah, absolutely. Either him or Reed from the Chiefs, just the two guys you mentioned, the two guys I was looking at, and a big-time corner. And I would actually consider swapping out Zaire Franklin for Lou Anarumo's guy with the Bengals who's looking to get out of there. If you can somehow offload Zaire Franklin, because to me, you're not going to win with that guy. He's just not a leader.
Mike in Brooklyn, New York, man. I appreciate the input as always. We'll do it again soon.
All right, JMV. Thanks for taking me back with the journey, too.
Yeah, you got that right. Anytime. That's late 70s journey right there. Wheel in the sky and lights. When the lights go down the city, that's good. Journey. All right, quick break. We'll come back. Mary J. Blige tickets maybe coming up. That's the queen of R&B and hip-hop right there. Mary J. Blige is going to be an excellent show coming up at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Got your chance for tickets. You got to listen to win. We'll close it out with your calls. Get you right for tomorrow's show as well. Do not go anywhere. It's not time yet. The bell has yet to ring. It's 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
with JMV.
And the beat goes on, yeah. And the beat goes on.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right, the queen of hip-hop and R&B, Mary J. Blige. April the 21st, that's on a Monday night. Not too far from right now where we sit. I got a pair of tickets for you to see this show. Gamebridge Fieldhouse. Tickets available for Mary J. Blige. Number 9 at 239-1070. You are a winner right now. We'll be doing this all week long. This is going to be a great show, so don't miss it. Again, tickets available April the 21st. Gamebridge Fieldhouse. Mary J. Blige. And number 9 at 239-1070 right now with the opportunity to win. Again, we'll do that all week long. I did want to send out all of our heartfelt condolences and thoughts to the family and those in and around Hamilton Southeastern and the death of Mason Alexander. I was following Kyle Nedenrip over the weekend, and Kyle Nedenrip had done a couple of different stories on this incredible athlete, playing as a freshman, football-wise, at Pittsburgh, and you hear the news on the car accident that claimed his life, and you just know how that has struck Hamilton Southeastern, the Fishers community. It's incredibly sad. And I wanted to make sure that we sent out our heartfelt condolences and thoughts to all of our friends at Hamilton Southeastern up in Fishers and obviously the family of Mason Alexander. It's awful. And our thoughts are with you. Kyle has a story, detailing especially his high school time at Hamilton Southeastern that is worthy of your time. We're thinking about you. Tell you what, Billy, my apologies to Billy, who's on hold. We'll get Billy coming up on the show tomorrow because I didn't realize we were that far up against her right there. Billy, my bad. Saw Bill a couple of different times last week, and it was great to see Bill, as it always is. Our guy Fulton, who had 40 shots, 40 points, 40 rebounds, 40 passes. He was, what was it called again? Quintuple 40 for our guy Fulton, too. Hope his elbow's feeling a lot better. Thank you all for joining us. Stephen Holder and Tony East, the podcast 1075thefan.com. Night number 1 of sectional play for the fellas begins tomorrow night. Greg Rakestraw will be here to detail that. And what is going to be a big night of college hoop tomorrow night as well. We'll be there for you. Pacers conversation as well tomorrow at 3. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Have a great night.